So it's late afternoon and here we are at the drop-off point, the floating jetty in Sabang main town. And right behind me you can see a number of brightly painted boats. Now I thought these were tourist boats, they look like they should be tourist boats but they're not, they're local fishing boats. And this particular style is particular to Sabang itself. And you can see the very high prow at the front which are coloured in different colours. They kind of remind me of fairground ride cars like the Wurlitzer or the Waltzer rather. They're very, very bright and they look very smart. We are with our personal taxi driver, he gave us a lift up to Casa Nemo, which is where we went last night with a whole bunch of yachties. We thought we'd go again today just because, just because they do beer and pizza, so why not? It's a really nice spot as well. And tonight they've got live music. So anyway, this is the way that you get around town. It's a motorbike with sidecar. It's a very small sidecar. I think it's designed for people a lot slimmer than us, but it's a nice way to see the town. Well, we've made it to Casa Nemo. This is a restaurant run by an Italian man and an Indonesian woman, and it's set in some beautiful gardens. We're about to have a beer and pizza, but there's just one problem. The entrance is set on top of a hill, but the restaurant is at sea level. So we get to build up an appetite by descending hundreds of steps through the beautifully manicured gardens. Now we like to eat local when we're out and about, and don't forget this part of Indonesia is pretty dry, but when beer and pizza is available I'm having some of that, especially when it's set in such a scenic location.
The island of Pulau Way, which forms part of the Sabang city, is a small active volcanic island 9 miles northwest of Sumatra, Indonesia. It lies on the same archipelago as the Nicobars and the Andamans. Much of it has been declared a wildlife protected area. It's small, but it's popular with tourism, especially diving. Unfortunately, we didn't get time to do any snorkeling, but we did do a circuit in a day on a scooter.
Well, here we are on the west of Pulau. As you can hear behind me, it's the midday call to prayer, but it seems as if a lot of people are just hanging out by the beach. We've found a rather nice little spot with these swings right on the shore. And over in the distance is Banda Aceh mainland. That's the very tip of Sumatra mainland. And that is where we are going to be sailing, somewhere over there. And I'm happy to report at the moment, the sea looks pretty benign.
This is it. This is the very end of Indonesia. This is Kilometer Zero, that's what they call it. For us though, it's the very beginning of Indonesia. Right behind us is the Nicobar Islands, and then north of that the Andamans. There is no more Indonesia in that direction. It's all behind Jamie in that direction. So of course when we leave Sabang, we'll be heading round the coast and we will be sailing around this point. It'll be interesting to see when we actually do the sail what the weather's like. Let's hope it's good. Come up to the end of our little cruise around the island. We've almost completed the circuit late in the afternoon at the last long run downhill, and look what's happened. Got a landslide and the traffic's starting to build up. They've got a digger who's on the scene and he's clearing the road really quickly. In fact, I've never seen a digger work as quickly as this guy. It looks like he should be clearing up the road very, very quickly, but if he doesn't hurry up, we're going to get quite a bit of traffic building up. So yeah, it's a bit precarious, that landslide. There's a huge, great big rock, almost the height as me, and yeah, I hope he does a good job in clearing it all up. Sabang is famous among yachties for hosting the Sabang Marine Festival. Sadly, our visit to Sabang has been brief. We have 2 months to cover 1,000 miles, so it's time to leave this beautiful island. Now, the only checking out involves a trip to quarantine, where Jamie is now.
So I've just said goodbye to the harbour master, which was good fun because it basically involved lots of selfies with all the staff. And the only official duty we have is to check out of quarantine, and I don't think I have ever seen as many stamps in my life. It's the evening before our departure, so last thing on the list is a spot of provisioning at the night stalls. They've got some pretty interesting fruits here, including snake fruit, whose skin really does look like a snake, and red fleshed dragon fruit. Super early start this morning. We got up at 4 o'clock and left around about 4:30. And the reason for this is because we're getting through the cut which divides the very top little island just off Sumatra and the next bigger island, and we have to get the timing right with the tides, because when it's flooding the tide is against you, so we need to time it so that we hit it at high water and when it ebbs. So that is what we're doing right now. A little bit of motor sailing, some of those funny cross currents as well, the breaking waves that we saw when we came over here, a couple of ships, but most importantly lots and lots of dolphins. So we were happily motor sailing at 4.5 knots, and as you can see now our speed has picked up to over 5 knots, and you can see the indicator on the right which is showing 1.8 knots. That's current with us. So far our timings have been pretty good. To be honest, we've had current with us pretty much the whole way from Phuket, but it's just starting to pick up now. And the other thing we've just done is to jump from something like over 200 meters in depth right down to 44 meters, and that will continue to get shallower as we approach the cut, which I guess will obviously have some kind of influence as well on our speed. You can see a little bit of wind over tide here now with the little riplets on top of the water. We've got over 2.5 knots of tide or current pushing us, and it's kind of pushing us in the direction towards that island, and the wind is slightly on the nose, so that's what's creating these little wavelets. You can see now we've got over 3 knots of current with us, so we're now doing 6.6 knots, so picking up speed as we come into this channel. So we've altered course slightly, taking us further into the channel, and you can see of course that means that the current that's pushing us changes angle, so you can now see that the computer is compensating for this. So this is our actual track, so that's where we'll actually be going, the red line, and the blue line is our heading, and you can see there's quite a bit of difference now between the two as it makes for that compensation. So Liz has just reminded me to tell you about the hazards here. So we've got a couple of wrecks here, 2 that are marked dangerous, and some rocks as well, so we need to make sure we steer clear of those. So despite appearances, as we look up, it looks like we're actually heading down the centre of the channel, but as you can see on the chart, we're actually heading down this way to keep those clear. So we're into the channel proper now, And behind that island there is the other cut, which is has an even stronger current going through. Now one option would have been to have cut through here and have gone straight down there behind that boat who's waving at us, and it just made me a little bit nervous. We turned around to sort of check it out, but you can see there's a line of waves in between that island and this island here. And let's not forget, of course, that the soundings are based on old data, and there was a very big tsunami here 15 years ago, and we're not entirely sure how the contour of the land has changed. So anyway, I bottled it. I think the sensible thing to do is to just go round the outside. Well, we're through the main channel, and we've just turned around the corner to go around that island. You can now see we've got 2.7 knots. Kind of coming up behind our quarter, and at the moment the effect in the water is this. It's very lumpy. So we finally made it to this little bay of a village called Sidu, and doesn't it look tranquil, nice and calm? Unfortunately, this is one of the only places on the west coast of Sumatra that's protected by that southwesterly swell. We're a bit shell-shocked, to be honest. We've only had 2 hours sleep, and as soon as we came through that cut, that southwesterly swell was a reminder of why surfers venture down this coast, because it was pretty hardcore. And unfortunately, because there was no wind, we had to motor it, and I hate motoring in those kind of conditions, because the only thing I think about is when is the engine going to cut out. That aside, we've now found this little village, and it's a pretty little spot. Sidu apparently was one of the single worst hit villages in the 2004 tsunami. Now fortunately most of the inhabitants survived, but everything was wiped out: their livelihood, their fishing boats, their homes. They've received aid, of course, to rebuild their livelihoods, and they've been working very hard to do so. So we're surrounded by these FADs, which are these brightly coloured fish attraction devices, dotted all the way into this bay. We have a little outcrop here which protects us from that southwesterly swell. So the dilemma is, do we hang out here for a day or two, or do we push on? Because there is some predicted northerlies which would help push us down the coast. They don't hang around for long, only for 2 days, and it's a good 200 odd miles to the first island that we're aiming for.
Well, we got through the cut, which was pretty nerve-wracking, I can tell you, but when we hit that Indian Ocean swell, shit hit the fan. It really did. We went this way, we went that way, Millie went downstairs, we went upstairs. There wasn't much time to do any filming because we really had to to get proper control of the boat, and with no wind it meant really just steering and working hard to keep her reasonably upright in those very, very heavy seas. So anyway, we got there, that's all okay, and now we are going to go forward to some of those amazing islands along the west coast of Sumatra. Gosh, we've got a lot coming up over the next few weeks, can't wait to show you. But before I talk about that in any more detail, I just want to say a very, very big thank you to Nani and Budi, who are organisers of the Sabang Festival. We were there a good month before the festival started, but they went out of their way to help us, to make life there as easy for us as they possibly could. Taught us a bit about Sabang, a bit about Indonesia, about Sumatra. It was all really useful stuff. So if you are thinking of going there ever, get in touch with them. We'll put their details in the description below. So yeah, once again, thank you very much guys. It was brilliant to meet you both. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to just like, not difficult, just a little like, and share it with your friends and your family on social media. That would be absolutely marvellous. And also, if you like what we're doing, subscribe so that you get notified of all the videos that we're planning to do over the coming weeks. And if you're wondering what this is, it's our roll call. It's a roll call of all our Patreons and some of our rum funders who support us regularly. So if you want to be on the roll call, become a Patreon, become a rum funder. You can find out more about that on followtheboat.com/thanks. We'll put the information in the description below. So thank you very much for watching and sticking with us right to the end. I think there's just one more thing, isn't there? Yeah. Discount code for the shop, FTB Sabang. We'll put it in the description below, but it only lasts for 1 week. And of course, if you're a Patreon, you already know that you have a permanent discount to anything in our shop. So, thanks very much again for watching. Peace and fair winds.